Welcome, everyone. The hour being 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. The Tooele City Council and Tooele City Redevelopment Agency are meeting in a work meeting being held at the Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street. We will start with a roll call. Councilwoman Manzione.
Present.
Councilman Graff.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady. I'm also present. We'll move on to item 3, which is the mayor's report.
Thank you, Chairman and council members. I just want to remind you that tomorrow evening from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Tooele High School will be the Community Outreach Open House. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we are participating to help the high school inform youth and their parents about all of the organizations and just activities that can be done in the city and through the school, and they want to help people understand that there will be ways that they can offer some scholarships ways for youth to participate that maybe can't afford a certain type of activity. And with our last mayor's golf tournament, we had an additional $2,000 that we have donated towards this project through the Education Foundation, and it just will be there to use to help, like I say, students who can't otherwise pay for an activity. It's going to be a very, very informative open house, and we hope that there's a lot of students and parents that attend that, especially those who say there's nothing to do. There's lots to do. We just want to make sure that we get that message out to our students. And as part of our water conservation education program that we will be pushing all year is really to educate our residents. There is going to be a fantastic presentation that is done by the Tooele County Extension in their offices. There where the health department is. This is going to be held on Saturday, February 18th at 10 a.m. We will have more information in our newsletter, but there are going to be some classes, and there's just a nominal fee of $5 per person, and you can attend all these classes. But there's going to be how to flip your strip, how to change your sprinkler system to drip irrigation, how to design a yard in Tooele County, so something that will grow in our climate, even growing your own bouquets, shrubs and perennials, and also a class on growing great onions. So these are awesome classes, and we are just going to really encourage our residents to take advantage of this. We're grateful for the snow that we've received, and we know that that will help us, but we're not out of the drought yet, and even when we're out of the drought, we should always be conserving water. It is a precious resource, and so we, again, information will be in our newsletter. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. We'll move on to item 4, which is the council members' report. We'll start with Councilwoman Manzione.
Okay. Today, the mayor and I Jared were able to go to the Utah League of Cities and Towns legislative update, and we did have Representatives Jimenez and Bolander who attended. So that was nice to see them and get a little bit of update at the beginning of the session. And then I just also wanted to commend our planning commissioners. They've had a couple of meetings that they had to make some difficult decisions, and I just commend them for their professionalism and the way they handled things. You know, we've had a room full of people, and it's gone really well. So we have some great people serving on our planning commission. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Graff.
I had a chance to listen to the Planning Commission meeting and try to listen when I can, and I would echo the comments of Councilwoman Manzione. We're fortunate to have good planning commissioners, and it's always a pleasure to hear from them, hear their perspectives, and it's something that I keep in mind when I'm making decisions. Other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
I went to the Switch Point board meeting the other day, and there was a report on the Harris project and how it's going. I'm sure some of the city probably knows, but the resource center part of it, they figured it'll be done in September, so that was good news. I went through it the other day, and there's a lot happening inside of that building, so you can't tell from the outside, but lots is happening, so that will be nice to have that up and running. And of course, we attended a planning commission meeting last week, so them guys are always good and take care of business, so I appreciate them. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilman McCall.
I just attended the COG meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was, as usual, it's pretty good, but that's about it. It wasn't really nothing to bring forward. Just voted on who was going to be what the first meeting of the year.
Okay. Thank you. The only thing I have is we're trying to set up what we used to call a budget retreat, but we're not really retreating anywhere but the large conference room. So a budget meeting. We've tried for some Friday dates. Would a Saturday be better for everyone, or do we want to try to just pick another Friday? I know there was several dates that have been thrown around, but it didn't seem like it worked for all of us.
I'm good on some Saturdays. Just like you had the 27th, what was that, the 26th was the date? Was one of your dates, or whatever that Friday was, and that weekend I'm good. And then the 10th was something I couldn't come to that.
So we can push it to March if we need to, but I don't know if I want to push it that far away, so I'm hoping we can pick a date before then. We don't have to do it right now. Shiloh wants some different dates to try for everyone, so I didn't know if a Saturday would be better.
No, we've done
if-
Saturday before, yeah.
We have, yes. So just watch for another email and let me know after you look at your schedules. And I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot, so. Okay, and that's all I have. We'll move on to item 5, which is our discussion items. Our first discussion item, our only discussion item tonight is Crestview rezone. This is presented by Jim Bolser, the Community Development Director.
Good evening, Council. This is being brought back to you largely as a housekeeping measure. We're looking for a little bit of guidance. So the Council is probably familiar with this, but I'll run through just kind of an orientation to it. If we can go to the next slide, please, Holly. So this is the approximate subject property. It's just to the northwest of Home Depot that you see there, the little white block in the lower right-hand corner of the map is the roof of Home Depot. The project in whole actually stretches all the way from Barra Boulevard to 400 West, but this is a rezone application in which only the eastern half of it is in need of a rezone. So this next map here is the land use map. You'll notice that it's kind of split in half between the brown and yellow. Prior to this application, the applicants filed for a land use map amendment, which was approved, that added a section of high-density residential to the eastern approximately third of the overall project site. It's probably close to 2/3 or 3/4 of the section that needs to be rezoned. This next map is our current zoning. You can see that there's a little finger of RR5 that winds its way through this area. The western half is already R110, which is the zoning designation that their conceptual plan anticipates. The eastern half being RR5 would need to be amended to match and then accommodate the other uses. The next map here is the proposed zoning map. The left-hand portion, approximately quarter to a third, would match the R110 further west. The eastern portion would become MR16. This map here is the subject of the application at hand. This application has been on our books for some time, approximately a year and a half. It was first brought to you as a discussion item. This application has not yet started the formal process through the Planning Commission and Council with public hearings and whatnot. So it is right at the starting gates, so to speak, of the process for a potential decision. The reason we're bringing this to you is you may recall there's been a couple of discussions regarding what potential amenities and development layout and possibilities there may be with this project. I believe the next slide we included the concept plan. Yeah, this is the latest concept plan that we have on file. You can see the darker yellow, lighter brown, and then the medium brown in the middle are differing sized single-family units, single-family lots, and then the eastern portion in the green is a townhome portion. This concept is actually rather old as well, so there may be some changes to this, but this is the most current one we have on file. So this application, as I mentioned, is still right at the initial stages. There was some conversations with the council and the applicant regarding the possibilities of different amenities, as I mentioned, and what the council wants and what the city needs in this portion of the community. And there's been some discussions between the applicant and staff, the applicant and the North Tooele Special Service District about various possibilities. But we've not been able to leave the starting gate as yet. One of the major reasons for that is a lot of these discussions about what will ultimately occur and what we need and desire in this area hinges on the developability of the site in general. As with many developments, and you heard the mayor report on our needs for conservation, the primary issue is the availability of water and water rights. You have in your packets some correspondence with the applicant regarding the status of this project moving forward on their end, particularly regarding water rights. And it appears to staff that the likelihood of moving forward is probably not in the near future, but may be more long-term. And so our question in bringing this back to you is largely to say, what would you like us to do with this? Where it's already been sitting for 1.5 years as we've been going through these exercises, we really haven't left the starting gate, so to speak. So if the council's desire is to have us keep tracking it and have it continue to sit until they are ready to move forward, we're perfectly happy to do that. If you're interested in having it go through the formal process, knowing that it's a rezone, it's not a development application, and so assigning a zoning doesn't do anything other than vest a right to make application for something else where the water rights would become an important piece. Or we're happy to simply cancel the project, refund the applicant's money, the expended portion of the application fees, and then allow them to reapply at the time that they are ready to move forward. And that's really the emphasis in bringing this back to you, is just to get your feedback as to what you would have us do with this application. Where it is a formal application, you have seen it. We wanted to get your feedback before we took measures of our own.
All right, any questions or comments?
Does the applicant have a preference?
I would infer from the email correspondence that they have a desire to move forward at some point. It's just a question of the availability of water rights.
Okay, thank you.
I would, as long as they're wanting to continue forward, I would see no reason not to just do that.
Right.
Unless they're, the water might be a while though. So I guess that'd be the discussion with them, is the water. I mean, we had discussion about their well they had and find out if that well would even work for the city or not, but I don't know how far that ever went.
And I haven't been a party to those discussions, so I couldn't respond to that intelligently.
Yeah, and neither could I, because I don't know where we ended up after the discussions were had, so. I don't know if Steve could talk to that point possibly and tell us, where that is, but.
Yeah, and if the desire is to move forward, like I said, we're happy to just let it continue to sit as is, and nothing would happen with it. Or we're certainly able to process it at least through the zoning map amendment process, which is what we're at now, knowing that that's effectively where it would end, because development approvals couldn't come forward without, or at least couldn't be approved without availability of water.
I'm not opposed to rezoning it. I think in the discussions we've had about it, it seemed like
We
the
agreed upon
council
it,
was in favor of the rezone, so I'm fine with it moving forward, but unless the applicant doesn't want that, then.
Yeah, one of the difficult considerations you'll have with that option, and it's certainly your option, is that until there is really a plan to move forward with development, it's really speculative in nature to zone it. But that's certainly within your rights.
It'd just be one less step they have to do when they get water, if they do get water. And I agree with you. I assume we just move it forward and it'll stop at one point and just be on hold. But it'll be ready to roll when the water rights.
So if we rezoned it now, the applicant, it's still sitting there waiting for something to be done, right? Just because we rezoned it doesn't mean it goes away. They still have their application in and,
Yeah, a rezone doesn't get canceled out because of inactivity. So if you were to approve a rezone application, that zoning would stay applied until either they request to change that or a development application would come forward.
so does everyone want to see it come forward as a rezone? Do we want to just let it sit?
I think that absent them requesting a rezone, I think we should just let it sit. I mean, they're indicating that they want it to move forward eventually, and we know eventually can take a while, but I would say just let it sit for now, and if they express interest in rezone, then I'm certainly open to doing that.
I like the concept, the idea. I mean, I think it needs some tweaks, but I like the concept, and I'm not opposed to the rezone, but the water is an issue. So,
Okay. I don't know, we've talked about parks before on this specific item. I guess if we're not moving forward, I don't see the point of discussing plans for this area if there's no intention of developing it. So
Right.
that's where I stand with the park. I just don't see the point of getting into all that if it's not going anywhere, so.
I would agree.
So am I safe to suggest that what I'm hearing is just let it continue to sit?
I'm okay with that.
We're
Yes,
happy to do that.
everyone on board with that. Either way, it's going to sit, right? If we rezone it, it's sitting.
Yeah,
Is
it's
my
sit-
understanding, right?
Yeah, it's sitting, but it's further along the process, and we no longer have to manage an active application, and someone hasn't paid fees for something that's just sitting. That's the only difference.
At what point can the applicant request a refund? You had mentioned
At
a
any point.
refund. Okay. As long, so that's always in their court that they can?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
there is one difference. It's a nuanced difference, but it's an important nuance, and that is that at this point, the decision is a legislative decision, which you can approve or disapprove for any reason that can be debated between you. If you were to approve the rezone now, then that kicks in the administrative process of subdividing the property. And at that point, you could not reject a subdivision application if it complies with the city ordinances. So the nuance is that at the legislative phase, you're able to discuss conditions you would like to see when the property eventually develops. After the rezone, your ability to impose conditions is gone, except unless it's already on the books.
Probably the right thing to do then is wait.
I think
I like options.
All right, so it seems like pretty unanimously that we're just going to let it sit until something comes forward.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Chairman, I can give you an update on that GTM well if you would like me to share that with you tonight.
Sure, that would be great.
Several months ago, we met with Mr. Holste, who owns the well, and it was after Tooele City had paid just over $150,000 to have a pump put in the bottom of that well to find out the status of what water was down there at that point. We do know that there was a lot of water. Source was good, but after 2 different tests, the test came back that the water is not potable. It could not be used in our system the way that it was. Both tests were that way, and the contaminants in the water were high enough that it could not safely even be used for secondary water because it would kill plants. That's how bad it was. So we invested that money just to find out if that would be a source. Then we met again with Mr. Holste because we had been in contact with a gentleman who has a way to treat water, and he believed that he maybe can treat that water and make it potable for the use of the city. So we needed water for him to do that test. The pump had been pulled out of the well. The pump needs to be put back in the well at a deep enough level to draw out that water at a good rate, not 5 gallons a minute or 10 gallons a minute, but 1,000 gallons a minute or 800, whatever they were pulling that water out, because that's probably pulling the contaminants into the water. So again, our tester can't test to see what he can do and what it would cost to treat it, if it can be treated, and what that would cost to see if that could be a good source for the city. As we met with Mr. Holste, he committed to hire the drilling company to come back in at his cost and put a pump down in there to get some water to test. That is what we are waiting for. That has still not happened, and that is where we left it. He committed to using his funds rather than city funds to test the well. It is his well. If this well produces the water that we believed in the tests and it can be made potable, the city would love to have that well. But we cannot make any commitments until we find out what that water tests. We've got to know if the contaminants are still there, why would they go? But then if they can be treated and at what cost. So that's where we're at.
Seems like, Mayor, that when we had that discussion, because I think I was in the meeting too, but that we talked about the casing and to have them test that and make sure, or put something down to check that casing to make sure it was good.
Good casing?
Good
I don't
casing.
remember as much the casing.
Yeah, I think that was Paul's suggestion
Okay.
at the time, just so you know. That was part of that meeting.
And if that needs to be checked, that's great. I mean, we know there's some kind of a plug down there in that well for a reason. They couldn't go past that plug. But more than anything, again, you've seen the presentation by Mr. McKinley of how this system works to clean it up, and we have high hopes that he can do that at a cost that's very effective. But we have to have the water to give to him to check. And again, you can't just go down and take 5 gallons a minute and go a little ways down the well. You've got to go deep and get that water out of the well to make it a municipal well. So we're just waiting. We've already invested, the city funds. So now we believe that we've got to have the owner of the well invest in it too. And then, of course, if we can use it, his costs he can recoup those costs. But we've got to know if it's something that we can use. And we hope that it is.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, which is a closed meeting. We do not have a closed meeting tonight. So item 7 is to adjourn. We're adjourned at 6:52, and we'll